You all ready? Volume is working. Is that just because there's nobody in here but us? Can you not hear that? Okay, all right. I'm mostly deaf too. All right, we're good. The subcommittee will come to order. Thank you to all our witnesses for being here today. Today we are here to take a closer look at the notice letters that VA sends to veterans who file claims for VA benefits. The VA disability claims and appeals process is extremely complex. VA's notice letters are supposed to be easy to understand, but the directions in the letters themselves are more or less like walking through a maze, for what we hear from our veterans. VA's notice letters have been unnecessarily lengthy, complicated, and filled with legit legal terminology. Some letters provide conflicting or unclear instructions. Others don't provide enough information. The VA claims system is supposed to be veteran-friendly, and our veterans deserve better than to be confused or misdirected at any given time. It's time for us to simplify VA notice letters and ensure every veteran can easily navigate the VA disability claims process. The Veterans Benefits Administration's Language Change Control Board has attempted to improve those letters, including because of feedback from veteran service organizations. But VBA's efforts to make notice letters more comprehensive have led to longer, more disorganized, and more complex letters, not clarity. And even though we consistently hear complaints from our veterans, the VA's letters are still, to date, too confusing. Instead of providing clear directions to navigate the disability claims and appeals process, it seems the VA notice letters have become puzzles that only lawyers and experienced VSOs can read. Some of our veterans and survivors feel overwhelmed by the complexity of these letters and abandon their claims altogether. Many experience anxiety, depressions, and panic when they receive these letters. I understand that firsthand, being a veteran who had to go through these letters. Congress has passed legislation to verify VA notice letters, but there's still more work to be done. We must ensure that our veterans can easily understand how to pursue their claims without having to encode lengthy letters at every step of the claims process. We owe our veterans a clear and concise communication. Today, we will be hearing from VA Disability American Veterans, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and the National Organizations of Veterans Advocates to learn more about how we can improve and simplify VA notice letters. With that, I yield to the Ranking Member Pappas for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing on disability claim and decision appeal letters. As of this February, the average time for a veteran to receive a decision on their claim is 158 days, and that's assuming they don't need an appeal. Throughout those 158 days, the veteran's primary touch point is to track the status of their claim through notification and decision letters. These letters communicate claim decisions, rights and options to appeal, how to contact the VA, compensation rates, hearing dates, and so much more. Notification letters are critical to the veteran's ability to navigate their benefits claim. Yet despite the importance, the information presented in the letters is often ambiguous, convoluted, buried in legal jargon, or outright wrong. In my own district, veterans have contacted our office expressing concerns about letters they've received indicating an immediate response was needed to complete their claim when in reality, their claim was already decided or required no further evidence. We owe it to veterans to provide them with clear, concise, and correct information so they can access the benefits that they've earned. The letters have been an area of concern, as the chairman said, for over 20 years. Congress enacted the Veterans Claim Assistance Act in the year 2000 to increase transparency and provide support to the veteran throughout their claim. Since then, GAO has reported documented issues in letter clarity in 2011, 2015, and 2017, which eventually led to the Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act of 2017. So while significant progress and improvements have been made, more needs to be done here in terms of the clarity of these letters. And now with the implementation of the PACT Act, there's growing concern as to whether the clarity and quality of these letters will be affected by VA's workforce adjusts to the growing volume of benefit claims. So understandably, the same statutes that have increased transparency and support also put limitations on VA's ability to adapt to present-day claim processing challenges. So today I'm interested in hearing from our witnesses about the challenges that veterans experience with these letters, obstacles that stand in the way to solutions, and especially how Congress can increase the quality and clarity of VA's communication to our veterans. Our shared commitment to veterans demands proactive and collaborative approaches to address these challenges. We must leave here today with a better understanding of the source of some of these communication issues, and along the way, I appreciate the efforts that VA has made throughout the years to increase transparency and support through the claims process, but it's clear that more needs to be done to support the veterans and their families who expect me and everyone up here not only to help them navigate through the red tape, but to cut it down where necessary. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member. Our lead witness from VA is Ms. Beth Murphy, the Executive Director of Compensation Services. Ms. Murphy is joined by Judge Caroline Fleming, a veteran law judge at the Board of Veterans Appeals, Ms. Denise Kitts, Executive Director of Enterprise Measurement and Design at the Veterans Experience Office, and Mr. Brian Griffin, Deputy Chief Counsel of the Benefits Law Group at the Office of General Counsel. I ask the witnesses on the first panel to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, and let the record record that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you all for being here today, and Ms. Murphy, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to deliver your opening statement.
Good afternoon, Chairman Luttrell, Ranking Member Pappas, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss Department of Veterans Affairs disability claims and appeals letters. Thank you for acknowledging my colleagues today, Ms. Kitts from VEO, Mr. Griffin from Office of General Counsel, Judge Fleming from the Board of Veterans Appeals. I would like to acknowledge up front that we recognize the importance of sending letters that are easy for those we serve to understand. For many veterans and family members, VA can feel big and confusing, and each letter we send is an opportunity to build and maintain a relationship with those we serve. The more compassionate and comprehensible we can make our letters, the more trust they will have in our ability to provide benefits. We have taken many steps to improve this and are continuing these efforts. VA seeks to strike a balance between ensuring clarity and readability of letters and complying with statutory and regulatory requirements regarding what our communications must include. Over the years, VA has implemented several statutes aimed to strengthen and improve protections and transparency. VA is bound by statutory and regulatory requirements governing our duties with obtaining and relaying evidence needed to substantiate a claim. Many current letter requirements include VA's statutory duty to notify and duty to assist requirements as part of the Veterans Claims Assistance Act of 2000. Additionally, as part of the Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act of 2017, VA revised letters to include information on VA's appeals process and requirements for the notification letter when a decision is issued on a claim. More recently, laws related to claims based on military sexual trauma have impacted VA letters. For example, in 2022, the Dignity for MST Survivors Act required VA to audit denial letters for claims related to MST. A joint VBA-VHA work group incorporated trauma-informed language in the denial letters, and we went further than that. We even looked at the grant letters, development letters, and the text of the rating decision. VA held meetings with our Veteran Service Organization partners, seeking first their input and then their feedback on the updated products. In the appeals space, the Board of Veterans Appeals currently uses about 150 different letters to share information with or seek clarity from veterans and appellants, and all board form letters have undergone multiple levels of review. The board reviews and updates letters annually, and letters originating from the legal division of the Office of the Clerk of the Board were reviewed for clarity and legal accuracy within the past 6 months. Though much of the content of VA letters is governed by law and statute, VA has initiated multiple improvements to our correspondence to simplify letters and make them more understandable for veterans. For example, VBA partnered with the Veterans Experience Office to learn more about the experience of veterans in the claims process using human-centered design methods. In April 2023, VBA launched a new V-Signals survey specific to the Disability Compensation Program, which was sent initially, surveys initially were sent to first-time claim filers, and we expanded to other compensation claim types just recently in January 2024. VBA reaches out directly to veterans for specific feedback after we get the surveys back, which we will use to inform future letter changes. Additionally, in 2013, VBA instituted a governance process for review and update of compensation and pension-related letters called the Language Change Control Board, or LCCB, which include members from several business lines and offices. The LCCB reviews and approves all disability compensation and pension-related language change requests for letters and other external-facing communications. This group also ensures language changes are tracked, reviewed for accuracy, and sent for implementation. From fiscal year 2022 through February 2024, the LCCB completed 57 disability compensation and pension-related language change requests, ensuring enhanced readability of claims letters. Going forward, we remain committed to continuous improvement in letters. VBA is in the process of assessing the universe of letters in use and prioritizing a review plan to ensure we're giving proper attention to this area. Chairman Luttrell, Ranking Member Pappas, in closing, thank you for the opportunity to discuss this important topic. My colleagues and I are happy to respond to your questions, and we would welcome opportunity to meet with your staff on specific letter changes if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The written statement of Ms. Murphy will be entered into the hearing record. We will now move to questioning. I recognize myself for 5 minutes. There's kind of a lot to unpack here, but so I spent all of last night reading this binder's full of letters from veterans that came into our office. And I can appreciate the VA's position to protect itself when it engages with the veteran community. I mean, I'm sure over the decades and decades and decades, when letters have been going out to the veterans on their claims, along the way, we've like, hey, we need to add this, we need to take this away, and this is where we are today. And I got to tell you, one time I was on a nuclear submarine, and I was talking to the nuclear engineer, and he was going to teach me how to track the bubble through the reactor on a nuclear submarine. And I think after a week, which is saying something, I was like, hey, how do you make this thing go? And he goes, push the red button. And I was like, you mean you spent an entire week trying to tell me how a nuclear reactor works, and you could have said, just push the red button? I was like, we could have saved ourselves a whole lot of time. And after reading these letters, it seems like the VA has gotten too big for itself when it's corresponding with the veteran community, because the letters are just, I was even speaking with lawyers that can't even understand what's written in it. There's got to be a sweet spot in there somewhere that we have to find. The number one issue I hear from veterans, I shouldn't say number one, a very substantial issue I hear when I'm speaking with my veterans is I have no idea what to do because I can't read this letter and I can't pay for someone to read this to me because my district's way out in the country, right? So these guys and gals, it's them checking the mailbox. So my question is, and I have a laundry list of, I mean, this is single space. I can't even read the print. It's so small, of ways to course correct this problem. And they seem very simple. My first question is, you said that the letters that are coming back or the responses from the surveys come back to the VA. Ms. Murphy, I caught that. Who is that individual or individuals that receive those letters? And then once they've read them, where does that go?
So, Chairman, we have a survey mechanism. The letters go out. We send a lot of survey invites out. We get a certain percentage back. So far, I think the response rate has been around 18% in the last year that we've been sending out the disability compensation survey letters. Then we look at the feedback. We look at the distribution of the data. But we also make what we call service recovery calls. So we will make phone calls and try to attempt to reach veterans. We call folks who have given us high scores and folks who have given us low scores to see what the reason was for their response. And then we take that feedback and we work closely with the Veterans Experience Office since they own the survey mechanism. And then we start to incorporate that.
So those responses that are read go directly to Judge Fleming's office. Am I tracking that correctly? It just seems like it dies on the vine somewhere. And I don't want that to sound abrasive, giving everything that you have to do.
So there are multiple surveys, sir. The board will have their survey. We have multiple surveys within VBA by different product type.
You said there's 150 letters, different, I'm assuming, different types of letters that go out to our veterans? You said 150 different ones?
From the Board of Veterans Appeals, sir.
150 different letters to go out to a veteran.
Could address that.
That seems like a lot.
Yes, sir, I certainly understand that. And I can give you a breakdown of the different types of letters. We've got docketing letters, so for contested claims. We have letters that we would send to the claimant, letters we would send to the contesting party, initial letters, final letters, and so each one of those would count as a different letter. But you're right, sir, that it's a lot of letters because there's a lot of information that we're trying to convey to our veterans and to our other appellants, and we want to make sure that we're as thorough as possible. So we've tried to tailor the letters as much as possible to the different situations where we might need to send letters or correspond with a veteran or another appellant.
I think we need to step in and refine that number down to a lower number. It seems too excessive to me because in my military experience, the KISS method is the best way to pass information back and forth between two parties. And I think the VA has kind of outpunted its coverage here. So my time's expired, but we'll revisit it on the second round. I'll pass it off. I'll yield to the ranking member.
Okay. Thanks very much for the testimony. And you'd mentioned the V-Signal survey, which has been in place for about a year. Am I correct? You talked a little bit about the feedback that you've received, positive and negative from that, and some of the improvements you've sought to make as a result. Do you feel like you need to make changes to the survey? Are you getting the feedback in the way you desire to help inform your process moving forward, or are there changes that need to be made to that tool?
Sir, we're getting, we're getting initial good feedback that's actionable. Beginning later this fiscal year, we are going to turn on a function working with Veterans Experience Office to allow free text from the respondents themselves. So in addition to the phone calls where we talk through what the feedback was, individuals will have a chance to type their thoughts to us.
Okay. You'd also mentioned the Language Change Control Board in your testimony, and you referenced an example where the board added a paragraph to the "what should you do if you disagree with our decision" section of the notification letter. And from what I'm hearing from veterans and from VSOs, the clarity of the letters generally decreases the longer the letter is. And some of these things can be well in excess of 10 pages, if I'm remembering correctly from some of my discussions. To your knowledge, has the board ever eliminated text and letters? And if so, can you cite some specific examples?
Yes, Ranking Member Pappas, the Change Control Board, they are a governance body to make sure that there's consistency, they enhance clarity, the tracking. They're not the subject matter experts that are creating the letters themselves. So they will ingest these requests. Hey, we have a letter, we'd like to change it. Can the board take a look at it? There are subject matter experts from across different VBA offices. And so it's a body that aims to improve clarity, consistency, make sure letters are changed. Off the top of my head, I really can't give an example of some of their technical, tactical work, but I could get that for you.
When we think about veterans and VSOs specifically, how does their feedback get to the Language Change Control Board? And do you feel like that is happening in a way that can actually make a difference in terms of the product?
Yes, it is making a difference. I would like to include Ms. Kitts from Veterans Experience Office, but before I turn to her, I would like to say very specifically some of the last targeted efforts that we've had on letters. We have had sit-down meetings with our VSO partners in particular to get their feedback ahead of time, to show them the products, to make sure that it meets the mail, so to speak. And we've had great partnership with our VSOs. Ms. Kitts?
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. So I work for the Veterans Experience Office, and our job is to advocate for the veterans inside VA. And so when we partner with program offices, we use a process called human-centered design, which essentially means, in a nutshell, keep it easy. is we co-design with our veterans. So one example of that is recently we partnered with VBA and we did a redesign of the other than honorable letters. And in that process, not only did we incorporate, strike that balance in terms of easy to read, tone, empathy, but we also tested it, with veterans. And, that's so we deploy a human-centered design methodology, which basically means co-design with our customers, test with our customers. So that's an example of how that voice of the veteran gets entered back into the product.
Okay. And one question about quality assurance. That topic has been a focus of this subcommittee because as we think about today, when VA letters contain avoidable errors, they can add to frustration and confusion, and it can also increase the time that it takes for a veteran to receive their benefits. So I'm wondering how VA attributes the source of errors like that. Is it training, automation, quality assurance? How should we think about that?
That's a great question. We have front end, we have when you become a new claims processor, we have months of training where you practice on the job, you have a mentor, your work is reviewed. We have over a dozen different training modules that are specifically addressing letters. Excuse me. And we also have quality review mechanisms in place. Local quality review teams look at the products along the way as the claim is being processed and give feedback to claims processors. We also have national quality review, our STAR program. And if we find errors that duty to assist hasn't been met, things like that, we will call an error. Or sometimes if the letter's just not up to snuff, I would say, could have been better, we can give a comment back to the regional office.
Okay. Thanks for helping me understand that. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. Mr. Self, you're recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the legislative branch. I have already shared my thoughts with the chairman that we are discussing letters that the VA is sending out. I find that should be an administrative function in VA, not a congressional function. But we always talk about inputs up here, and I make this comment every time we have a VA panel. We talk a lot about inputs. What we hear are the outputs. The veterans that cannot understand their letters, cannot read their letters, whatever. I filed a bill, Judge Fleming, I filed a bill to add 2 judges to the Court of Appeals above the board. Now, what I'm told is that, which I don't like, because the board is taking so long that it is causing the backup at the Court of Appeals. I understand that veterans, you're informing veterans that your review docket takes 365 days. And yet the board has informed us that the average is actually 613 days. Is that about right? And that there are some that are over 1,500 days. This to me seems a problem. And again, I don't like putting more judges on the board, on the Court of Appeals, because the board is so backed up. How are we going to make this one faster, and how are we going to do that through these letters? Because this is the vehicle, the first vehicle that I understand that they get. So how are we going to do that? And this is below Congress level, I believe, but please share with me.
Thank you for that question, Congressman. I don't have a great answer for why it's taking so long. I know the number of claims that's filed by veterans and other claimants grows every year, and we've expanded and attempted to deal with that. Part of the goal of the AMA was to speed up the decision-making process at the Board of Veterans Appeals, and I believe we're doing that, but you're certainly correct that we're not yet at the point where we want to be. Although we're working as hard as we can to get there, sir.
Do you have a process by which you take the 1,500 days to get them done?
Yes, sir. We decide claims in docket order, which means the...
Well, I find that, I'm not sure that's right, because the average cannot be 613 days. If your oldest ones are 1,500 days, that's not possible. You've got some outliers at 1,500.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And those are from the legacy system, which part of the AMA's goal was to was to shorten appeals, shorten the time that appeals were taking to be processed. So the legacy appeals, we are working hard to draw down our legacy pending inventory, and we've made a lot of progress in that. I believe we reduced our legacy pending inventory by over 60% in the past fiscal year, and we're continuing to work as hard as we can to complete those oldest claims, because you're right, they've been waiting years in some cases, and we certainly don't.
It only makes sense to me to do that.
Yes, sir.
This is another indication of the VA complexity. I ask you to simplify VA. I asked my own VISN. We've got the second largest VISN and close to my district, not in it, but close. And I asked the director at one point, we talked about phone numbers coming in. They have 15, at least 15. Why is VA so complex? And these letters are another indication. I mean, to discuss letters, and I know mine's not as thick as the chairman's, but to discuss letters, I have at least an inch thick book here to discuss letters. I just ask you, find a way to simplify this, because if veterans cannot understand the letter and they can't hire somebody to understand the letter, this ought to be a mission order that Congress gives you. Find a way to simplify your letter so that you have the inputs that are more correct and faster, and the outputs we hear are a better VA. Outputs are what I'm concerned about. How do we help our veterans? Not how we build a bigger bureaucracy, add judges to the appeals court or whatever. How do we simplify this animal? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Self. Mr. McGarvey, you're recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all very much for being here. I share the concern of some of my colleagues, and I think the reason is because we really do care about how our veterans are getting information, how they're able to understand that information, and ultimately get the care, service, benefits they have earned. This gives us an opportunity to dig into these details a little bit on the claims notification process, especially as the VA expands the use of automated decision report. I'm not a Luddite, but I do want to make sure that we have the proper guardrails in place as we incorporate these technologies into helping our veterans. The claims processing and related communications with veteran and survivor beneficiaries, let's just be honest about it. It has been an ongoing challenge since 1995. And while the VA has been working toward improving efficiency in communication, there have been several GAO reports and VSO statements that suggest these are still major issues. In reading through the testimony today, I'm deeply concerned about the way these notifications are handled and the confusing communication veterans and survivors are receiving from both the Veterans Benefits Administration and the Board of Veterans Appeals. We also want to ensure accuracy in decisions. So, Ms. Murphy, starting with you, how is the VA ensuring that the use of automated decision support technology is helping to improve accuracy and efficiency instead of contributing to errors and staff time correcting those errors?
Thank you for the question. The focus so far for the automation support has been to tee up a lot of, pull out, use that automation support to pull out the relevant information that the decision maker needs. Rather than, I used to rate claims. I'd spend hours combing through paper files, service treatment records, various treatment records from private and VHA. This technology is able to pull that information forward into like a list where the claims processor can then, instead of spending their time digging for things, they can use their smarts and go through and find the relevant information faster. So that is saving time, and it's really focusing the lift from the technology on finding the most actionable information.
Thank you, because we do want to get this right. Second question is, what is the VA doing to improve the quality assurance process for the claims process so that the notices veterans and survivors receive are accurate and their access to benefits is not unnecessarily delayed?
We are constantly looking to improve. I mean, the reason that these letters are so complex is that we're trying to help. There are a vast number of veterans, vast number of types of claims, different things that they're claiming, different things they're entitled to. I will be the first to acknowledge, I understand the daunting feeling when you take the letter out of the envelope and it's this thick. You know, my husband's retired Air Force. He gets these letters as well, and sometimes I can see it on his face. He almost says, you know, do I want to embark on this? I do understand that, and I'm empathetic to that. Our perspective also is, though, we are trying to do everything we can to help veterans get what they're entitled to. And sometimes that means giving them information, adding a form to the letter, and it extends the length. So we are constantly trying to find that better balance between giving necessary information and guidance and simplicity.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your empathy and understanding what a lot of these vets are feeling when they get this information, how confusing it is, and your commitment to try and help and do better. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Crane, you're recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you guys for coming today. Ms. Murphy, has there been any documentation or communication indicating that outside stakeholders, such as VSOs, have previously notified the VA about issues with clarity and complexity of these letters years ago? If so, did the VA previously take any actions to address these issues? Please give us specifics.
Yes, sir. We get input and feedback from multiple channels: internal, external, veterans themselves, and we ingest all of that feedback. Some of the types of letters that we've prioritized recently have been improving debt letters. A few years ago, our undersecretary at the time was very focused on the impact of getting a debt letter and how traumatizing that can be. So there was a focused effort in updating debt letters.
Do you have any of the documentation with you that you've received from any of these VSOs today?
I don't, sir.
Do you guys have a to-do list from the VSOs? Any documentation of that?
We have, I'm sure we have some correspondence back and forth, emails, things of that nature, various feedback.
Okay, but you don't have a to-do list of things that VSOs, some of the folks representing our veterans, are asking for to streamline these letters?
So, sir, what we're doing is we have some feedback. We're going to be soliciting more, and we're going to have an enterprise-wide plan, multi-year plan to identify, using the V-Signals survey information, what the most actionable letters should be based on veteran feedback. We're going to start with those targeted letters.
Real
and then
quick,
continue.
since my time's running out, ma'am, can you provide some of that documentation to this committee on what you guys are tracking from the VSOs and how you intend to take their feedback to streamline this letter process?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Judge Fleming, since the board June 2023 creation of an office for updating its letters, how many letters have been revised for any reason other than because a change in law compelled you to do so?
Thank you for that question, sir, and I'm not certain of that number off the top of my head, but that's something I can certainly take back and get you a more concrete response to.
Okay, how about this? Have any letters been revised for any reason other than because a change in law compelled you to do so?
Yes, sir. My office recently worked on, I believe the internal title is the NOD clarification letter, and where we were once sending out one of several different letters if there were several different issues with a 10182 that a veteran or an appellant submitted. We've revised it to make the process simpler for the staff who send the letters out with us. So there's, not to get too in the weeds, but a drop-down menu, so if the issue is the NOD was not signed, then the language automatically populates. So things like that. Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Fleming, so that's one that you know of off the top of your head, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go to you next, Mr. Griffin. From the perspective of the Office of General Counsel, What measures, if any, has the VA taken to ensure that the letters comply with legal requirements while also being understandable to veterans who do not have legal backgrounds?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. I want to harken back to what the chair said. We said we're looking for that sweet spot. The adequacy and comprehensiveness of notice letters the VA sends does get litigated, and so we're looking to strike that balance between comprehensiveness and technical clarity on the one hand for appeals purposes and common sense, informality, and readability from the veteran's perspective. I mean, that's what we're trying to hit. In terms of specific actions OGC has taken, I mean, when we receive requests to review particular administrative products, we work closely with our clients to do so. And our input tends to be front-loaded when a new set of requirements is passed into law, as you alluded, such as the Appeals Modernization Act or the PACT Act. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Ms. Murphy, my last one's for you. And I believe you when you say, man, we're trying to do everything we can to provide our veterans help. And you said that right after talking about pulling one of these letters out that feels like and looks like a packet. What do you think happens for your average veteran that pulls that letter out that looks like a packet? What do you think their initial response is, and what do you think the chances that they're going to follow up and follow through on reading through and looking at that entire package is?
Congressman, I can tell you what my veteran at home says or what he does. He's seen the packet. I think there's a first initial kind of big sigh of this is a lot, but then I've seen him and I've sat with him and walked through it. He goes section by section. We have headers, we have categorized the information, and he goes section by section and
Yeah, and
marks it
that's
up.
great, ma'am, but he lives with you, right? You work for the VA and you're an expert in this field. How many veterans have that luxury of having somebody with your experience and your inside knowledge that, you know, I'm sure when he sees it, he's like, oh my God, this is huge. But he's like, my wife is a rock star. She can help me get through this, right? How many veterans have that luxury?
Yes, sir.
And so to the chairman's point, and others who have made similar points, what are we going to do to streamline this to where the first thought that a veteran gets when he opens that packet isn't completely being overwhelmed?
And sir, not every letter is that long. The notification letters, once we make a decision, other ancillary benefits that somebody might be entitled to, dependency information, those come with forms. So oftentimes the longer letters are on the back end.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been called to the floor for votes, so this hearing will be in recess until we return. No, we were just talking about that, so I think we're just going to close it out. Would you like to make a closing remark, sir? No. Okay. Well, I actually probably could have cut you guys loose before we got out of here, but I'm sure you're going to stay after the fact. This is the one thing that I'll ask that we're going to move into the second panel. And thank you for your service. I said that before the hearing. I said it during, and I most certainly will say it after the fact. And for lack of any other better statement, this seems to be a silly problem to have with these letters and the complexities. You heard me say it. We have to find that sweet spot. I'm asking you all to do that. We don't need 150 letters, in my opinion. I don't know the depth of it. Ms. Fleming, I'd like to meet with you sometime to dig into the problem set. Mr. Griffin, you seem to have a good understanding on that as well, and we can have a roundtable discussion on exactly what that looks like. That's an easy ask, yes? So let's do that moving forward. This just benefits the veterans in the long term. I think there's absolutely a way we can work together by, with, and through each other to help the men and women out that served our great country. With that, thank you very much. Good afternoon. If you're okay, we'll go ahead and start. Outstanding. Our second panel of witnesses will include Mr. Shane Learman. Good to see you again. Of Disabled American Veterans, Ms. Diane Boyd Rauber. Of the National Organization of Veterans Advocates, and Mr. Michael Figlioli, of Veterans of Foreign Wars, excuse me. I ask that you all stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, and let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you all for being here today. Mr. Learman, you're recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Chairman Luttrell, Ranking Member Pappas, and members of the subcommittee. We are grateful for the opportunity to appear before you today. And DAV is a congressionally chartered and VA accredited veteran service organization that provides claims and appeals representation to veterans and their families at no cost. Mr. Chairman, I refer to my written testimony for the technical aspects of the Veterans Claims Assistance Act and why VA letters are in their current form. My comments this afternoon will focus on 3 of the VA's letters: the duty to assist letter, the wrong form or incomplete form letter, and the VA rating decision letter. Recently, DAV surveyed our national service officers, VA accredited benefits advocates, from over 60 offices across the country. The consistent complaint from veterans about the duty to assist letters is that they don't understand much of the language used, and they are not clear on what actions they actually need to take. In reference to wrong or incomplete form, the common complaint is that veterans are being advised that they either submitted the wrong form or the form was not completed and signed. However, in many instances, that is not correct. One of our offices noted the veteran was advised by VA that there was a missing page from their 526EZ application for benefits. The veteran responded with the missing page from the application. Then the VA canceled the veteran's claim as they indicated he only provided 1 page of the form and did not submit a complete claim. This is unacceptable. Our survey showed that a major complaint from veterans on VA decision letters is they are too long and contain information that may not actually directly apply to them or their decision. It is evident that these letters speak a language that veterans cannot always translate. It becomes even more stressful when the VA letters are filled with errors. Mr. Chairman, one of our supervisors noted they are finding errors in approximately 30% of all VA letters they review. In our written testimony in Exhibits D, E, F, and G, we point out several errors, gross misspelling, and completely inaccurate claims information in VA letters. This compounds veterans' confusion and frustration. Specifically, we note, in Exhibit E, the VA notifies the veteran they received his claim for a back condition and a left Achilles tendon injury. Further, they indicate the veteran must specify what disability he's claiming, although they just acknowledge he did claim 2 specific conditions. So they expected a response from him on what he was claiming, even though they acknowledged he claimed those 2 conditions. It took a DAV service officer to contact the VA employee, explain the situation to them. They agreed, and then VA rescinded the veteran's letter. VA letters and notices to veterans and their families have been bogged down with legal language. DAV makes the following recommendations. VA should take a new look at letters by concentrating on the language for the reader, not the legal requirements. We suggest the use of focus groups populated with veterans and veteran service organizations, developing language that clearly conveys information and the intent of the letter. We also believe there should never be a wrong door at VA. DAV recommends that VA reconsider the standardized forms requirement or take an approach that will either accept the wrong form as an intent to file, or if all of the needed information is provided, VA should just process and adjudicate the claim. We recommend VA either to create or improve the quality assurance of all of their letters before they're being released. These errors are compounding the inability to understand what is being relayed and what is actually being requested. In the committee report accompanied with the Veterans Notice Clarification Act of 2008, Congress stated, instead of simple, straightforward notices that can easily be read and understood by claimants, VA is now routinely providing long, frequently convoluted, overly legalistic notices that do not meet the objective of the Veterans Claims Assistance Act. Here we are, 16 years later, and the VA letters have not improved, but actually regressed in clarity and quality. VA can and must do better. This concludes my testimony, and I look forward to any questions you and the subcommittee may have.
The written statement of Mr. Learman will be entered into the hearing record. Ms. Rauber, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
And members of the subcommittee, NOVA thanks you for the opportunity to discuss whether VA's letters are easy to understand and provide information needed to navigate claims and appeals effectively and timely. As accredited attorneys and agents, NOVA members most frequently review letters describing legal decisions, seeking additional information, and conveying deadlines. Although legal in nature, these letters do not have to be complicated. They must, however, be clear and accurate so the recipient understands how to preserve their rights. Unfortunately, many VA letters are too difficult to read, too confusing to understand, and too disorganized to be effective. First, VA needs to improve the readability of its letters. VA does not consistently apply plain language concepts to individual letters. Their 2023 Plain Language Act Compliance Report acknowledges that best practices include use of the Flesch-Kincaid readability standard. However, the passages we tested under this standard fall far short of an 8th grade reading level, which is generally recognized to be understandable by 80% of the population. In fact, many passages scored on a late high school or college level. This is problematic, and as demonstrated in our written testimony, can be fixed. Second, improvements to readability alone are insufficient. A letter can be written at an appropriate reading level, but still be inaccurate or misleading. Take, for example, notices telling veterans their benefits may be reduced or severed. Veterans have important but limited rights that can impact whether they continue receiving their full benefits while they appeal. Specifically, if a veteran requests a hearing within 30 days of the notice letter, VA regulation allows benefits to continue at the current level pending a final determination. If a veteran misses the deadline, they still have up to 60 days to ask VA to review the decision, but their benefits can be stopped in the meantime. Unfortunately, VA places the information regarding the 30-day deadline for a hearing on page 4 of its notice underneath a heading that says 60-day deadline to respond. In the words of one NOVA member, "We have way too many clients miss their opportunity to a hearing and basic due process because the due process notice is positively buried. We hope VA will fix this problem immediately." Another frustrating and increasingly common problem involves notice letters to veterans who have allegedly submitted the wrong form. For example, one veteran submitted a supplemental claim form, and VA sent a letter telling the veteran they needed to file a 526EZ. When the 526EZ was submitted, VA wrote again and told the veteran to submit a supplemental claim form. Yes, that was the original form the veteran had already filed. That veteran was represented by an accredited attorney. Accredited VSOs, attorneys, and agents are able to look in VBMS to see what's going on and intervene. But unrepresented veterans are bound to become frustrated, and some will abandon their claim or appeal. Those who stay the course and attempt to figure it out are forced to waste valuable time. In these situations, VA first has to be sure something really needs to be fixed. If it does, VA needs to clearly identify the problem and give simple instructions for solving it. Our concerns about letters are not limited to VBA. Our members frequently review letters sent by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, impacting legal rights but lacking notice of due process. Furthermore, veterans are forced to contact the general VA call center number and frequently report board-specific questions are not adequately answered. The board should use its clerk of the board function to provide clearer written communication and a direct line for appellants seeking answers. Finally, VA letters are frequently disorganized. Some letters contain important information, but not necessarily information critical to the immediate claim. We appreciate VA is seeking to provide veterans with information about other benefits they may have earned and recognize it's a balancing act. VA should put legally required information up front and provide a table of contents to other information for better organization. In conclusion, as VA considers how best to improve letters, it should include feedback from veterans, survivors, family members, caregivers, and accredited representatives, as well as pilot new letters to ensure they are readable, accurate, and organized. We thank you again for the opportunity to testify today and are happy to answer any questions you have.
The written statement from Ms. Robert will be entered into the hearing record. Mr. Viglioli, you're now recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Chairman Luttrell, Ranking Member Pappas, members of the subcommittee, on behalf of the men and women of the VFW and its auxiliary, thank you for the opportunity to provide remarks on this important issue. Having worked in this field since 2008, I know the VA letters veterans receive require time and attention at nearly every step of the process. While VA has worked to address this issue, there was work to be done. For veterans who have served their country, the transition to civilian life can be challenging. However, the complexity of these letters often makes it difficult for the veteran to comprehend the details and implications. Before the implementation of the Appeals Modernization Act, the VFW and the VSO community advocated for the simplification of decision notices and supported its directive to improve notification letters to veterans. Even with our input, notification letters from the VBA and the BVA continue to be notorious for complexity and legalese. The average veteran still needs to consult an accredited representative, attorney, or other trained professional to help decipher them. To its credit, VA recognizes the complexity of these letters. They have consulted with the VSO community to help make them more understandable, such as letters related to MST, VRNE, reserve drill pay, and Blue Water Navy benefits. When easily understood language is used, the time needed to manage expectations and reduce appeals is lessened. Past administrations have convened small working groups of stakeholders to review letters to veterans with positive results. The VFW encourages VA to consider reestablishing a similar process for all correspondence in the future. One of the primary challenges veterans encounter when reviewing notification letters is the intricate language and terminology used. Legal jargon and medical terms can often be overwhelming for those without a background in law or medicine. This leads to confusion and frustration. Our accredited representatives spend a great deal of time explaining letters that make sense to the trained eye, but not to anyone else. The notification letter may mention various forms of compensation and other benefits, but veterans struggle to connect these pieces of information. This lack of clarity impedes veterans' ability to make informed decisions. Dealing with this bureaucratic process can take a toll on a veteran's mental health. As a result, the emotional impact further complicates the already challenging task of comprehending the details of a notification letter. VA uses letter-generating technology. While there are key components that decision makers must contain, there is a free text option. Under proper supervision, decision makers should be allowed a better opportunity to explain parts of these letters that are confusing. The Debt Management Center attended one of our national training sessions. They brought with them 2 mock-ups of letters that they were developing to send to veterans. They asked every student to review the letters and offer input as to clarity and content. The result was a collaboration that made the mystery of VA debt collection much less stressful for recipients. Recently, we represented the claimant from Texas who filed a claim for PTSD. We submitted the complete claim package to VA. After acknowledging receipt, VA generated a letter to the veteran stating it received the claim, but included another blank application. This led to the veteran to believe that there was something wrong with the submission, so they completed another application. This claim was dormant for another 135 needless days for a substantially complete application that was already in VA's possession. AMA was a great collaborative process between VSOs and VA. However, implementation is often where good intentions are lost. The board also has its challenges with decision notices. Letters received by appellants are redundant in nature, generic in scope, and missing critical information specific to the appeal. BVA notifications often include references to correspondence already received. The VFW regularly hears from veterans that the letter contains an additional 20 or more pages of information, which are generic explanations. There are more if the letter contains a decision. Aside from the endless paragraphs of VA-related jargon and federal code, the notification still may not explain its intended purpose. An additional challenge is effectively communicating due dates. The veteran that is receiving assistance with an appeal typically has critical dates explained by their representative. If a veteran feels overwhelmed when reading one of these letters or fails to read it completely, the appeal could be closed by VVA due to not receiving a response. This is a higher probability with an unrepresented veteran who is likely confused by the entire process. There has been a substantial loss of institutional knowledge as a large part of the VA workforce retires. The VFW is pleased to see the influx of younger talent, comprised of veterans who have the same or similar experiences as that of the claimant. With the implementation of the PACT Act, the VFW thanks the Undersecretary for allowing quality errors to be less punitive. These are good learning opportunities, but errors are still punitive for veterans who are waiting for their benefits. The VFW urges VA to continue to seek stakeholder input in developing letters that will impact benefits. The VFW is committed to working with VA to develop notifications with a common sense approach. VA has shown a willingness to do so, but not consistently. Let's make a continued effort at all levels that will lead to better outcomes for veterans. This concludes my testimony, and I am happy to answer any questions.
The written statement from Mr. Figlioli will be entered into the hearing record. We'll now move into questioning. Okay. The 4 lovely people from Veterans Affairs who provide oversight for this issue are in the room with us. 3 organizations who speak by, with, and through our veterans on this problem are in the room with us, which means we can solve this problem today if we wanted to. I'll ask, if the 3 of you have not gotten the phone numbers and emails of the 4 people sitting behind you and vice versa, you're absolutely wrong. This issue should not be living in front of this committee, in front of the ranking member and myself. This should have been handled at the lower levels, but here we are, okay? So either I'm going to put the committee together and have all of us at a table figuring this out on a whiteboard, or you guys can do it, and he and I can move on with every other single problem that we've got. I put that out with the utmost respect to everybody, but I'm sure you're listening to what I'm saying. Yes? Okay, great. I could appreciate that the VA has to, and we know that the 150 different letters is a problem set. Ms. Murphy stated that, absolutely. it almost seems like a summation page on the page number 1, a summation page that says, here it is, and all the amplifying information follows. Is that possible? This is one of those ones where I wish everybody was sitting up there in front of us, okay? I have the list that we pulled out of all of your testimonies, 2 pages worth of probable fixes for this issue, okay? I'm sure if they have not heard it, I'm going to hand it to them when we walk out of here. My question to the 3 of you is, I'm guessing this is not the first time. Let me ask you this. Have you sat down with anybody at the VA to discuss these issues face to face, or has it all been over the virtual space and gets lost in the middle of nowhere?
I know our National Service Department Director and his staff have addressed this issue with VBA on multiple occasions.
VBA is working the issue as best they can, from what I understand.
Right, but yes, to answer your question, we have addressed this face-to-face with them before, yes.
And obviously, since we're sitting here today, it didn't go very far?
Correct. A lot of the issues that we brought up specifically on the VA form letters and the complications and the confusion.
Give me a name of who you're talking to. I want the person so we can reach out directly to that individual and say, what's happening here?
I would have to ask my service director and who he specifically spoke to. I'm not sure who it was.
I'll be waiting for that response.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Rauber?
Well, as you can see from our testimony, I think it really needs to start with the fact that they're not even using the readability scale. These letters, they're not using simple tools that they're stating are important, and I think it kind of needs to start there. We've certainly raised issues with VA in various capacities about letters, labels, and all those situations. We've even had some focus groups, but I think sometimes there needs to be more follow-up on those. We could have a focus group ready by 5 o'clock today for people to sit down and talk about letters with our members.
Perfect. I'm all about that. Let's get it done today. Mr. Figlioli.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we have had conversations with the level from the USB on down. And it's been in fits and starts. You know, you've heard us all acknowledge that there are issues with these letters. We start a small group. We'll have conversations. We get some things done, but it needs to be more consistent.
It sounds like these are just meetings to have meetings. That happens every day in this place.
It does, but there is the concern that they have taken it back, but it needs to be a consistent basis. I said in my testimony, a past administration tried to stand up a letter writing office that was staffed with a couple of people where we saw these letters, and they did address those issues. Now we had a change of administration. That's gone by the wayside. Happy to work with the VA. Happy to continue to have these discussions. Happy to convene a roundtable if it means we can get these letters simplified and out to veterans so they understand them.
I will personally make sure that we are all in the same room together in a very short period of time. I'm sure I have something more profound to say, but Ranking Member, I'll pass it off to you so I can gather myself.
Please do. Thanks very much to our panel. I appreciate your thoughts here today. Mr. Learman, you mentioned that when a veteran receives an incorrect form letter, your service officers often find that the correct form was actually submitted. And so why can DAV find that out, but why does VA miss it? I know, is there something in VBMS that you can see that they can't see?
Actually, no. We only have read-only access, so we can only see what's in the file. So I think there's a disconnect from maybe an autofill capability to what some of these forms are getting when they scan the documents in and advising them that it's wrong. But when we go back and check, we'll find that the forms were signed, the correct form was submitted. So how this happens, it could be a variety of reasons of the technology, but I think at times, too, if you look at the volume, pure volume right now of claims coming in and claims they're processing, that can have an impact when you're very concerned about hitting your widget production for the day. You may be looking past the quality assurance to make sure it's being done correctly.
Okay. Ms. Rauber, you were talking about the readability scale. We heard in the last panel, they talked about human-centered design measures that they were taking when crafting these letters. Are those just two different metrics? Is there a way that we can really insist on greater readability for these letters?
And are designed. So I don't know how that really fits into the readability scale, but I can tell you that those scales are very easily found online and are very easy to use. It doesn't, I mean, we showed you some examples in our testimony. We took the language, we changed the language, and we brought it down from a college level to an 8th grade level and still conveyed the legal not information that needs to be in those letters. So that part it really isn't that difficult.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question. You represent accredited attorneys, so making something readable at an 8th grade level, does that sacrifice at all any of the legal requirements that VA has?
No, they can go hand in hand.
Okay. Do you think VA has the right, I mean, I appreciate some of the discussion here about engagement and how your organizations can be heard as part of this process. I think Mr. Figlioli, maybe it was you that mentioned working groups that had been convened in the past. Do you know when that was last done?
I think just last week, sir, Mr. Ranking Member, there was an MST auto text working group that was related to those letters. Again, keep it up front, keep it consistent. If we're going to do it, let's do it consistently. Let's meet consistently. Let's talk about the issues, and have the veteran get those benefits quickly and understand what VA is conveying to them. I want to just go back to the question you asked Mr. Learman. You asked about incorrect forms. We see it all the time. And a lot of it is communication amongst the VA and the VA ROs. You've got 52 or 54 regional offices. 48 of them will understand that there's a new form, will accept it and process that claim. But there's always a few others that will send that claim back and say, no, this is the wrong form, and then it just delays the claim and causes issues. So it's also communication, training, and oversight.
We'd heard in the last panel about the V-Signals survey that gets feedback from veterans about their claim experience. Do you know anything about that, and how would you rate that opportunity to capture that feedback? Is it effective? And anyone's welcome to chime in.
I'm aware of the program. I personally have never received the survey, so I can't, from my personal experience, say I've seen it and know what it is. From a perspective of my own, we've been to several meetings. We've heard it talked about for quite a long time, but I can't answer directly from my own experience on what it looks like.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. We have met with VA and OTED and been briefed on V-Signals. It looks like a positive thing. I have not seen those surveys either, but we did receive a briefing from them a few months ago talking about they were going to start this V-Signal process, and we will be meeting with them to have a follow-up discussion about V-Signals, and again, happy to meet with them and have that discussion.
Okay. Any other thoughts on specifically how we get, and Ms. Robert, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know a lot about V-Signals, but I think when it comes to surveys, you really need to be looking at how many people are responding. Are they getting a high response rate?
Yep. And I think they indicated 18% for a response rate. Do you have any thoughts on whether that's adequate?
I think that's low to be making determinations based on it.
Okay. Any other thoughts on capturing the veteran feedback specifically, whether or not it's a VSO that's a conduit for that or directly through one of these surveys?
Representing veterans as long as I have, there's a level of frustration and anger within them when they get these letters and don't understand what they need to do. For example, there was a veteran who filed a claim for increase for his diabetes mellitus 2. VA sent him a letter saying, you used the wrong form. We previously denied your claim for diabetes. So what did the veteran automatically assume? VA severed his service connection for diabetes and took it away. The anger conveyed to us from him, I don't think gets through to VA or VBA so they truly understand the level of frustration veterans actually experience because of these letters.
Okay. Thank you very much for those comments. I yield back.
We're asking the VA to restructure the letter formats, decrease the amount or the number of letters, but restructure it where it's easier for the veteran to understand. My question is, have any of the three organizations in front of us today taken a letter from the VA that is unreadable and rewritten it in a way that I can take it to the VA and go, this works? Here is a sample of what the veteran, they understand it 100%, because I'm asking them to rewrite something that they're writing, so the chances are it's not going to be exactly how the veterans want to receive it. But you touch the veterans. all three of you, your organizations. Has that been done? That will make it easier for us to engage with the VA to say, this makes sense. On last committee, I said we need to find that sweet spot. Now, if I can sit here and argue all day long, it's like, well, we're trying to fix this, but nobody says, well, this is how you do it. But if we have a legitimate rock drill that works, that makes it easier on them, it makes it easier on you all, makes it easier on us, and then we can take a step forward. Have we done that?
I don't think we've done it officially, but certainly in the testimony we provided, we showed how it can be done. And
Yes, ma'am, I got it, but it's...
Right, and I think we're ready to certainly help and support and work collaboratively with VA.
And I'm not asking to do all 150 letters, but if we take an end value of 20 and we present that to them, like, this is the direction we need to move, and this is why, I think they'll receive it very well. Can I get a head nod in the back of the room? There you go. All right, we're good.
Thank you. That's actually a very good idea, Mr. Chairman. We have not done that with our members, but to the point when you said earlier, we should have one sheet, one page that give you a brief explanation. And I think that's really a good place to start, because if you just tell the veteran, here's what we decided, here's what you're getting, here's the date it's going to start, it would eliminate a lot of the other problems on a 20-page letter with forms they don't need to complete.
I had to brief the president one time, and I took a 100-page document. The guy said, hey, you walk in there, you got 1 page and 3 bullet points. If you can't get your point across in 3 bullet points, you're done. It's that easy. So thank you for saying that. Ranking Member, you got something you want to? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming up and sharing these concerns with us. It's very well received. And again, the VA is still in the room with us, and they're taking notes. I'm watching, okay? I think if we take the ideas that we discussed and take the next one, our committee is going to move to get everybody in the room together. That is literally, I'm tired of meetings that have meetings. I don't want to show up, it's just a done deal, right? Okay, let's really get this together. Let's move on this like we should, right? I ask that you do your best to take what the letters that we received and break them out. So again, the veteran can understand it, and then I can move to the VA and say, here we go. Can we do that? Okay, I'll put a timeline on it. Let's get this done in a month. All right, you can shake your head out. I'm a former team guy. We're moving in 30 seconds. That's how we operate, okay? And that may not work every well, but you got 30 days. Does that work? Outstanding. Nobody's arguing with me. And then we can reassess, all right? I know that's just 30 days. Everybody up here works on an annual basis, like 3 years from now. But that's not how this committee is going to roll while I'm the chair. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And this hearing is adjourned.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.